Hi guys, here we are with another game that I just made, and this is my normal drag game. As you can see, I've got a square, a rectangle and a circle, and over here, so these are actually, if you remember rightly, make sure you've got your instance name right: square, instance name rectangle, instance name circle. Over here we've got our text, and this had to be dynamic text so that we could write our instance name. So that's target circle. This one is obviously going to be target square, and this one here, as you can see, is target rectangle. Okay, you can see that in our properties box. Up the top here I've put the name for a game. That's not going to change. The one down the bottom here does actually change, so that we need to make sure that was dynamic text, and we had to call it text field with a capital F. Now let's just make sure that this works. So here's my game. I can drag these over to where they're supposed to be, and I have some sounds. My text is working. If I get it wrong, I've got the right sound for that. And at the end it comes up with "You are a winner," and it has my sound at the end. So I know that so far my game is working. What we actually need now is to make sure that we can actually get this game to restart. And we're going to do that by adding a button. So the first thing that we have to actually do is to go back to our timeline, and I actually haven't named this, so I better go in and name this Actions. I just double clicked in there so that I could rename that. Now we have got our first frame here. Right, now that frame, if you click in that first frame, you will see that there is a properties for it and that you can name it. So I want you to name that play. Okay, so that's the frame label, play. Now what we are going to do is we are going to, at the bottom of here, at the end of our game, in this if statement, when the counter equals 3 and we've got our finished play and it comes up with textfield.text you are a winner, we're going to add another line in there. And what we're going to add in is go to, which is all in lowercase, capital A for and, capital S for stop. Now that should turn blue. That way you know that you've actually got that done right. So go to and stop, left hand parentheses. Now we need our speech marks, and I'm going to put game over, and I'm going to use a capital O for over, speech marks again, right hand parentheses, and a semicolon. So you can see I've got go to and stop, which is blue, and then I've got game over, which is green. So it's actually in speech marks. Don't forget your semicolon at the end. Now what we need to do is make sure at the beginning of the game that it just doesn't think that it has to go straight to there. So right at the very beginning of the game, before that first variable, we're going to put in a stop. So you're just going to put stop, left hand, right hand parentheses, and semicolon. So stop, left hand, right hand parentheses, semicolon. So that's, and stop should be blue. So that's what we've got for that frame. Now what we have to do now is to have a think about our second frame, because we've told it here that we want it to go to a frame called game over, and that's going to be this frame here. So you click on the second frame, and we're going to right click, and we're going to insert a keyframe. Insert keyframe. Okay, now you should have in the properties box the name for it. So we're going to call that game over. And remember, I gave it a capital O. So game is all in lowercase, over has got a capital O, game over. So that's the name that we've given to that particular frame. Now we're going to write in this frame, because here we have our actions frame open for it, and we're going to write in here some coding that's going to get us up and running. So we're going to have a button that we're going to make, and we're going to call it restart underscore btn. So let's put that in, restart underscore btn dot. Now we're going to have an add event listener. Okay, so that comes up in blue, add event listener. It will have then a left hand parentheses. Now it's a mouse event, so we're going to put in here mouse event dot click. Okay, so it's click, comma. Now I'm going to call this restart game. So we're going to do it like that with a capital G and right hand parentheses and a semicolon. Then we're going to go, you can actually go down a couple of lines. We're going to write our function. So we've got function space. Now we're going to write restart game again. Remember that game has got the capital G, left hand parentheses. It's an event, so I'm just going to abbreviate that and put EVT, colon. Now it's a mouse event. Okay, like that. Mouse event. And I just realized that up here I need to have a capital M. So I've made a mistake, so you go back and you fix that up and make sure you've got a capital M for mouse, capital E for event, dot click, restart game. Function, restart game. It's an event, EVT. What kind of event is it? It's a mouse event. Now you put your right hand parentheses and then we put a colon. Oops, sorry. Put a colon and then the word void. Now after that we are going to put a left hand curly brace. You'll find that to the right hand side of the P on your keyboard and you have to hold down your shift to get it. Left hand curly brace. Go down a couple of lines and put your right hand curly brace. Then go back in between both those curly braces, so you have to go to the line in between, and this is now we have to say that it's going to have to go back to this first frame. So we're going to put go to, all lowercase, start with a capital letter for and, go to and, stop, capital S for stop, go to and stop. So we're going to have left hand parentheses. Now we have to put a speech marks. We're going to the frame that we named play, speech marks again, right hand parentheses and a semicolon. So that's what we need there. Now we've actually told it that for this frame that we have got a restart button. Now if you remember rightly, if we go back to our first frame, okay, that's our first frame. If we go back to our second frame, this is our second frame. Now our second frame can actually look different, of course, because we can take some of these things off. You can actually take, for example, take this off of here, okay, so that you don't actually have that on there. Alright. What we do need to put on here is our button. So let's make that button. Remember that you can just go up here to your tools, think of a nice color for your button. I might put a green one. I'm going to use the rectangle probably for it, so I better pick a rectangle and I will draw a nice big button there. Now I need to put some text on it, so I'll get my text. I'll have to get a color for my text. I might make it black this time, and on here I'm going to write play again, and I just need to resize my text box so that this goes over the top of it. I'm going to go back and just hit on my selection tool again so that I can actually just move this around slightly so I get that to being the right size. I'm just going to resize my box here, my text box, just a little bit better. Hit on the selection tool again. Now I need to turn this into a button, okay, and it's a little bit like the same way that you made your movie clips here. So I need to make sure I've got my selection tool. I select my button like that. I go up to modify, I go to convert symbol, I make sure that the type is on button, so you need to change that to button. Now remember we called it restart button in our coding, so we're going to call this restart underscore button. I called it restart underscore button. Type is button, registration's in the center, and OK. So if I go back here and click on the first frame, that's what my first frame looks like. If I click on the second frame, that's now what my second frame looks like. Okay, so now the next thing that we need to make sure that we do is that this button actually has an instance name. Now if you have clicked on the button and you don't see it come over here, the easiest way to get it to come up is to go back and click on your stage, then click on your button again. The instance name is there. We need to make sure we have an instance name, so restart underscore btn is what I called it. Now let's have a look and see what we've got. So we've got our actions and our first layer. We've put a stop at the beginning of it, so you need to remember that to add that stop in there. At the end of it, we've said that when the game is all over and it's all finished and everything, that we want to go to and stop at game over. And game over is this one here. It's second frame. At game over it's going to look like this. We now have a play again button on it. It's called our restart underscore btn. It was an add event listener. It's a mouse event. We're clicking on it. Restart game is the name of our function. Here we've written function. The name of our function, restart game. It's an event. It's a mouse event. It's void. What is this function going to do? Well, it's going to go to and stop at play. Okay, which means it's going to take us back to that first frame. Alright, now let me just see if I've made any mistakes. So sometimes I do make mistakes, so I will just do a control and enter, and I can see that nothing has come up in my errors there. So let's see if this works. I've got my drag game, I've got drag shapes to letters. This goes over to my rectangle. Excellent, that works fine. My wrong sound worked fine. And now you can see that I've finished my game and it's gone straight to this particular window, which was my game over window, and on the game over window I have a button, and you can see that actually this button must work because when I put my mouse over it, it actually turns into a hand, which means if I click on it, there we go, it takes me straight back to my play frame. And that's all you have to do. So hopefully you can see that and you can actually do that to your own game.